Gorr the God Butcher joins Marvel's Snap, but is he worth your resources? In this video, I'll break down everything you need to know. Deck lists for every series, insights on the other featured cards, and whether I'll be going all in. Let's find out which of these spotlight cards are truly worth it. Here's the spotlight. So just to give some brief thoughts, Gorr I think is going to be pretty strong. Havok is just pretty much a non-factor. He is in some very niche decks. I have a older video where I have a Havok deck and you only have 3 cost cards essentially. A Sasquatch is in there as well. Pretty interesting build if you ask me. I might be a little biased. And then there's also Legion, who has some surprise factor. Let's get started with Gorr. Gorr the God Butcher is an ongoing card that gains +2 for each on-reveal card on the board. That includes your side of the board and your opponent's side of the board. I do not like doing math, so I'm not going to do it. I just know Gorr is going to be very strong. He could potentially get up to 20 power, assuming you are facing another on-reveal deck. But if it's just your own on-reveal cards and your opponent, let's say, is ongoing, then of course his output is going to be depressed. If you end up deciding to unlock Gorr, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really believe this is going to be a very strong card in a number of different decks, and we will get to those decks right now. We are starting with a pure Series 2 deck for the newer players. This is a deck that I think Gorr slides into decently. The general game plan is to, of course, get down your 1-cost on-reveal cards. They have all kinds of different utility. Then you have the Medusa and Scorpion, of course, more on-reveal cards that are very good. There is, to skip ahead to Shang-Chi, Scorpion and Shang-Chi can have a tug and pull, so use caution when playing these cards potentially. Scorpion will drop 10 power cards down to 9, meaning you can't Shang-Chi them. So maybe in some games you hold back if you have Sean in hand, and vice versa. There's Cable for a little bit of disruption. Cosmo is here to protect the Gorr lane or be disruption. There is also Storm and Gamora. That's how you can win a second lane or your first lane before finishing off the game with Gorr. And now we move to the Series 3 version.
Is this deck awful like the last one?
Maybe. Let me walk through the deck and explain, and maybe you end up agreeing with Thanos, maybe you end up agreeing with me, let me know. So this has a similar game plan, of course, from our Series 2 deck, where it's a lot of cheap on-reveal cards. The slight differences we have here is we have Daredevil and we have Quake. So with Daredevil, what he will allow you to do is on turn 5, see what they're doing in the Storm location. You can then Quake and lock off, flood a different lane, because you will of course swap around the lanes. Or you can figure out what you need to play in the Storm lane. You have Rocket Raccoon there. You have Medusa if you played Storm middle. You also have Star-Lord. You potentially have a card from Mirage that is higher power. Iceman is there for disruption. We have Cosmo for disruption as well. And maybe to protect one of our other cards, again, the Gorr lane. There is also Shang-Chi, who is an alternative path if you see them stacking a lot of power in one lane and you have a Storm lane closed off. And then, of course, the finisher in Gorr. And now for the people with access to most of the cards, we'll start with the obvious one, Mr. Fantastic. Of course, he is great here. Did I say Mr. Fantastic? I'll leave that in, Mr. Negative. So when Gorr gets flipped, he is a free card and 6 power. We have Jane to pull out a bunch of our free cards. There's Sage, Iron Man, Arnim, Taskmaster, and Mystique, Silver Sable. We have a backup game plan of Black Panther into Arnim Zola, should your plans go completely awry. This really operates like a standard Mr. Negative deck. Are a lot of on-reveals here, or a few on-reveals here. You, of course, have on-reveals from your opponent, but Mr. Negative, you're really not depending on Gorr. He is just one tool in the bag, another free card to draw. that is just powerful when your combo hits. Another deck that gets me super excited for Gorr is this one. Agent Venom and Bast get everything up to 3 power. You see in this deck, I have not much that is above 3 power. It's just the Agent Venom. I don't care about that. He's giving my other cards 3 power. Gorr, that's a +4. Iron Man, that's a +6 or 3, however you want to describe it, because Iron Man doubles. You have Mystique to either copy Iron Man and now Gorr. Fantastic. You have a bunch of cheap on reveals. Black Swan to get them out on the last turn and further surprise your opponent, because now you're flooding a bunch of on reveals and Gorr at the same time because of Black Swan. So this deck really has me excited. There is also the cousin of this deck, which is Bounce, and being able to bounce your on reveal cards. Of course, there's Toxin, Falcon, and Beast, who are all on reveals, thus buffing up your Gorr even more. And you have Black Swan in that deck too to replay all your 1 cost at the end of the game, and that is super powerful as well. The next card in the Spotlight Cache is Havok. Under no circumstances do I advise anybody to try for Havok. He is a very niche card. He is a fun card in certain decks. I do have an older video that features him, but again, it's just really for fun. And he can fit into a Mr. Negative deck. There's that too. But let's just keep on moving. Legion, I think, is a decent card, depending on the meta that we're in, depending on the type of decks you like to use. There is a Storm Legion War Machine Lockdown deck that is pretty decent. It doesn't get a lot of cubes, but it can get a lot of wins. Legion is good for surprise factor if you have a Limbo on the board, and if you have Bar with No Name, the one where whoever has the most points loses that lane. So he's good for shock value in the similar way that Quake can be. Is he somebody you should be targeting now? Not particularly, but also I wouldn't be super disappointed if you end up unlocking him on the path to Gorr. So what will Nerd Dynamite be doing? He will be passing. This is a very strong card. I do not blame you if you try for him. If you want to use tokens with him, both options are very valid in my mind. The reason I personally am passing is because of next month, and the December cards look fantastic, and I want a number of them, and they are more interesting to me than Gorr is. Gorr is a strong card, make no mistake about it, and he's a very good card. So again, if you go for him, it's a good decision. I personally would advise, if you have the tokens, to use tokens for him, because what Second Dinner likes to do is put 2 Series 4 cards in with a good card during that week. So if there are 2 Series 4 cards, in all likelihood, they have evaluated the new card to be very strong, and it makes sense. I think this card is going to be very strong, straightforward, but very strong card. But for me personally, I'm trying to save my resources. You can see what they are on the screen right now. And I just am more interested in cards next month. The one exception to that is maybe if this is absolutely busted like a Red Hulk is, but then also Second Dinner has proven that they can be quick with nerfing if it is super powered. I still wouldn't advise it, because they're going to bring it back down to a normal level like they did with Blob and the aforementioned Red Hulk. So wrapping up, Gorr is a very strong card that I think everybody should be happy to unlock or purchase with tokens. Legion is a decent card that, again, there are better cards, of course, but he's decent. And then Havok. Video over.